Thor and the Giant's Illusions. In Asgard, the home of the gods, there lived a god named Thor. Thor was known for his strength. When he walked, the ground seemed firmer beneath him. When he spoke, his voice carried easily. He did not doubt himself, and few around him did either. But strength, though useful, does not always reveal the truth of things. One day, Thor set out on a journey beyond Asgard, travelling with companions through unfamiliar lands. The road was long and quiet, and as evening fell, they came upon a vast hall rising from the ground like a shadow. It belonged to a giant. The giant welcomed them without hostility and offered them shelter for the night. The hall was large enough that their voices echoed softly, and the roof vanished into the darkness above. They ate, rested, and prepared to sleep. But in the night, a deep sound rolled through the hall. It was like thunder, slow and heavy, shaking the walls. Thor rose at once, certain that something dangerous was near. He gripped his hammer and waited. The sound came again, louder than before. At dawn, they discovered the source. The giant lay nearby, sleeping peacefully. The sound had been his breathing. Thor said nothing, but the moment stayed with him. They continued on together until they reached the giant's home, a place both welcoming and strange. There, the giant proposed a series of contests. Not battles, but tests. Thor agreed without hesitation. The first test was simple. Thor was given a drinking horn and told to empty it. He raised it confidently and drank. The liquid was cold and endless. He drank again and again. Yet, when he lowered the horn, it was still far from empty. The giant smiled and moved on. Next, Thor was asked to lift a cat. The animal appeared ordinary, grey and calm, sitting quietly on the floor. Thor bent down, confident. He strained, and the cat's back rose slightly from the ground, but no more. The room was silent. Finally, Thor was asked to wrestle an old woman. She was thin, quiet, and unremarkable. Thor laughed softly and took hold of her arm. But no matter how he tried, he could not force her to the ground. Slowly, steadily, she resisted him until Thor himself sank to one knee. The contests ended. Thor was angry and confused. Never before had he been so thoroughly defeated, not by strength nor by skill. The next morning, as they prepared to leave, the giant spoke plainly. None of the tests, he explained, had been what they seemed. The drinking horn had been connected to the sea itself. Thor had lowered its level more than anyone ever had. The cat was no cat at all, but the world-encircling serpent disguised. Thor had lifted a part of the world itself. And the old woman was age, something no one, god or mortal, could ever overcome. The hall around them began to fade. The giant was gone. Thor stood in the open air, the place empty as though it had never existed. For a long time he did not speak. Then he turned back toward Asgard. Thor returned, changed. He was no less strong than before, but he understood now that strength does not measure everything, and that some forces cannot be beaten, only recognized. From that day on, Thor still walked firmly and carried his hammer, but he no longer believed that power alone could explain the world. And that knowledge stayed with him, quieter than thunder, but far more lasting.